If you want to hear about one of the scariest creatures in the Amazon rainforest, then keep listening, because I'm going to tell you all about Mapinguari. The Mapinguari is a cryptid said to inhabit the Amazon rainforest in South America. The name Mapinguari comes from the Brazilian Portuguese spoken in the state of Pará. Here it is pronounced ma, pi, in, qua, ri. It is a combination of two words, mapa and ngari, which means back and water, respectively. Mapinguari is therefore literally translated into English as the backwards walker. It has also been called the monster of the jungle, or the man who walks backwards. These names refer to its most striking characteristic, that it walks backwards. It is usually described as being the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, about 2 meters tall, and weighs approximately 140 kilograms. Some reports say it can grow up to 8 meters in height, although these are likely exaggerated. According to local legends, this creature has huge black eyes, long arms and legs, and disproportionately large hands. Its body is covered in long black hair, and it has a mouth on its stomach instead of its face. This mouth is lined with sharp teeth, and it can open wide enough for a person to fit inside. And if that wasn't bad enough, this mouth also emits a horrible stench. But perhaps the most disturbing thing about this beast is that it walks backwards. When it does so, its enormous feet make deep marks in the ground, which remain there for a long time. If you ever encounter this animal, then you should run away very fast, because it moves at incredible speed. So where did this strange creature come from? Well, let's talk a bit about its origins. According to legend, Mapinguari was created by a couple of lovers who were turned into this beast as punishment for their promiscuity. They were transformed by a woman named Carapatucho, who was a member of the Catabar tribe. She was the daughter of the chief and had been promised to a man of her father's choosing. However, she didn't love this man, so she asked for a test to see if her suitor was worthy of her hand in marriage. She told him that if he managed to bring her a Mapinguari, then she would become his wife. But the guy had no idea what a Mapinguari was, so he set off into the forest to try and find out. As he walked along, he came across a clearing and saw a beautiful woman sitting inside. He introduced himself and asked if she could help him find a Mapinguari, and she agreed. But after they had walked together for some time, he began to realize that she was leading him into a trap. So he pulled out his knife and cut off one of her fingers. She screamed in pain and tried to attack him, but he managed to kill her. Then he took her finger and rubbed it over his body. As soon as he did so, it started to rain heavily and thunder echoed around them. Then the ground shook and a giant Mapinguari emerged from the trees. It roared loudly and charged at him, but he ran away as fast as he could. The Mapinguari gave chase, but he managed to escape into a cave and hide. The next day, when the tremors had subsided, he came out of the cave and found that the finger had turned into a beautiful girl. And as a reward for bringing the Mapinguari to her, she became his wife. There are many other stories like this one about the origin of the Mapinguari, but in each version, the Mapinguari is created as a punishment for wrongdoing, In some versions, it is a demon that has taken physical form, while in others, it is the spirit of an evil witch. One of the earliest recorded encounters with the Mapinguari was in 1697, when a Jesuit missionary named José de Acosta wrote about a giant hairy animal that walked on 2 legs and had a mouth on its chest. He said that it was so large that it could carry off a full-grown man, and that it was known locally as the Mapinguari. However, there have been many other supposed sightings of this beast down through the years, although we don't know how many of these are actually true. In 1925, a rubber tapper came across a pair of footprints in the mud and claimed that they belonged to a Mapinguari. The tracks were later examined by an expert who said that they looked genuine and could be faked. More recently, in 1977, a farmer reported seeing a Mapinguari while he was walking home through the forest. He said that it was about 8 feet tall and had a mouth on its chest that was filled with sharp teeth. Some people believe that the Mapinguari is a real animal that is somehow connected to the Amazon River. However, there is no evidence to support this claim. Others say that it is nothing more than a folktale that has been passed down through generations, but perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between these two theories. Perhaps the Mapinguari is not a real animal, but a distorted memory of a prehistoric creature. There have been many reports of bizarre animals in the Amazon rainforest that turned out to be real, such as the giant Amazon river turtle and the goblinfish. It's not impossible that the Mapinguari could also be real. In fact, it has been suggested that the Mapinguari could be a type of prehistoric ground sloth. These creatures lived in South America until about 10,000 years ago and were known for their huge size and thick fur. Some of these creatures were over 6 meters tall and weighed almost 2 tons. It is possible that early settlers in the Amazon rainforest may have encountered one of these sloths and then exaggerated its size and other characteristics over time. This could explain why the Mapinguari is often described as having backward feet and a mouth on its belly. Ground sloths typically walk with their front feet in front of their back feet, which could have been misinterpreted as walking backwards. Additionally, some species of ground sloth had a pouch on their stomachs where their mouths were located. So it's possible that this feature was also incorporated into the Mapinguari myth. However, there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, and ultimately, the Mapinguari remains an enigma. So what should you do if you encounter a Mapinguari? Well, according to local legend, the best thing to do is to play dead and hope that it doesn't eat you. However, this is probably not the best idea, as the Mapinguari is said to feed on the corpses of its victims. Instead, it might be a better idea to try and fight it off using a knife or a spear. Just be careful not to get too close, as the Mapinguari is said to have sharp teeth and claws. In conclusion, the Mapinguari is a terrifying cryptid that is said to inhabit the Amazon rainforest. It is usually described as being the size of a Volkswagen Beetle and having huge black eyes, long arms and legs, and a mouth on its stomach. Although there is no concrete evidence to prove that the Mapinguari exists, there have been many reports of strange creatures in the Amazon rainforest that turned out to be real, so it's not impossible that the Mapinguari could also be real. One theory is that the Mapinguari is a distorted memory of a prehistoric ground sloth. These creatures lived in South America until about 10,000 years ago and were known for their huge size and thick fur. If you ever encounter a Mapinguari, then you should try and fight it off using a knife or a spear. Now it's time for you to speak. Do you think the Mapinguari is real, or is it just a folktale? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to stay tuned for more content like this. Thank you for watching.